Hi, Rabbi.
Hey, Vilma. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm well. I'm glad you can hear me.
Yes, it's loud and clear. Loud and clear. Welcome, Shana, David, Chana, Eugenia, Shane, Ariel, everybody else. Wonderful. Okay, let's get organized over here. Give me a few moments, folks, as we prepare for another day. Oh, some more Tanya, some more good stuff. Okay. So what we'd like to do is always welcome people, because that takes a little time till everybody gets on both. We're on Facebook and we are on Clubhouse. So just going to say good morning to Susan from Scranton, Pennsylvania, Anna from Hungary, good afternoon, and Joe is with us from Florida. Marjan, Boker Tov to you in Atlanta. From Atlanta. Please say hello to my daughters. She teaches with my daughters. Robert in Boston, welcome. Sarah in New York. David and Batya here in Montreal. Oh my gosh, look at that. I have them on stereo. They're on Clubhouse Club, and also on Facebook. Tony is with us from Costa Rica. Diane in London, Ontario. John in North Carolina. Erica in Norway. Good afternoon. Cody, welcome. Eugene from Calgary. Barry is with us from the Marinas Islands. Okay, not certain where that is, but it sounds exotic. Simcha, Boker Tov in Florida. Stan in London, England. Welcome. Irma in St. Martin on the islands. Welcome. And who else is with us? Greg and Paula in Bakersfield, California. And in Budapest, George, Rick in Illinois. All right. Wonderful. We have Rabbi Raphael with us. Shana, Matthew, Batya, David, and many others. Wonderful. Thank you all for joining. Let us continue in the 37th chapter. We'll give over from today's class and then have discussion, questions and answers, and engagement in the important teachings of the Alter Rebbe. Yesterday we spoke that there is nothing greater than being charitable, because that engages the entire physical reality of the person, the entire vital animal soul of the person, because you got to work hard to make money, and even if you don't work hard for that money, it came easy to you. Today you can push a few buttons and you can make a lot of money. It doesn't matter. That money could have been used for your vitality. That could have been used for your life. It could have been used for essentials of life, but even non-essentials could have been used for my benefit, for my physical, material reality, and you give it away. That's a real transformation of the person, of their vital soul and body, and the material goods, to transforming that which is can be of a negative power. Well, it is of klipas noiga, and you've elevated and ascended. It becomes divine, a divine reality, a divine connection. Well, we're Jewish. What does that mean, we're Jewish? It means whatever we taught yesterday, we're going to upschlug today. We're going to say the opposite today. Not against charity, it's still amazing, but that there's something greater than that. And we're going to have a little, we'll have a discussion afterwards about the comparison. The truth is, we don't finish the thought today. It's we'll finish it actually on Sunday, the complete thought. But let us begin. So the Alter Rebbe brings a statement from the Talmud, from the sages, that says Talmud Torah keneged kulam. which means that the study of Torah, which, by the way, that's what we're doing now, so in a way, wow, amazing. That's what we're engaged in now. That the study of Torah is outweighs all of the mitzvahs, which means including charity. We just got finished, yesterday saying, and today reiterating, the great quality of charity. So how do we understand this? How to reconcile the fact that the study of Torah outweighs everything, including charity. So to make the argument, and that's today what we're going to do, is only make the argument of why Torah study is greater. And in the following class, we'll come to get a better understanding in the balance between them, or how we reconcile it. But for the moment, what is unique about Torah study? What is it that we're engaging right now that you don't engage when you are being charitable? Or, you could, but not necessarily be engaged when you're being charitable, or for any other physical action mitzvah, whether it's putting on tefillin, whether it's, lighting Shabbos candles, whatever the case may be, that they're engaged with a physical action. Well, I hope we're all focused, and I hope we're all thinking, because if if the thoughts are not engaged of the individual, meaning you could give charity and it could be mindless. Your thoughts could be completely elsewhere. Did you fulfill the mitzvah? Absolutely. Now, of course, you didn't fulfill it to the utmost. It's not the ultimate divine connection. And after this chapter, chapters 38 through 40, we'll discuss about kavanah, intent. But now we're speaking about the action of the mitzvah versus the study of Torah. So the action of the mitzvah does not have to engage your thought process. Mindlessly give money. I gotta admit, I do that. Right? I take some coins, put it into the pushka, and really my thoughts are elsewhere. Am I really, thinking about the loftiness of what I'm engaged in and doing this mitzvah? No, autopilot quite often. Maybe sometimes I do think, but I think for the most part not. But when it comes to study Torah, and I hope that's what's happening with us right now, we can't engage in the study Torah in such a manner. The thoughts have to be there. The focus needs to be engaged. Now, why is that? So it's okay, big deal. But why is that so important? So the Alter Rebbe doesn't say this this phrase that's from the Baal Shem Tov here, but to give us a little deeper insight, the Baal Shem Tov, founder of the Hasidic movement, said, "In the thoughts of the person, that's where you're found." In other words, where are you really? Right now you could be learning Tanya, but if your mind is on some exotic island thinking about vacation, so that's really where you are, in spirit, because in the thoughts of the person, that's where you're found. So, meaning that's the inner garment. It's the expression of me to me. In action, it's an exterior expression that's outside of me. That is not a true, necessarily even reflection of me. Again, you can do something and not mean it, right? You can bring flowers to somebody and even verbally say, I love you, but in your heart and your thoughts might be something different. In the thoughts of the person, it is a true expression of the person. Now, my speaking right now is coming from, and my thoughts right now that I'm engaged in Torah study are an expression of my vital soul, the inner garment. So what am I doing, actually, is that true inner self of me is now engaged in a connection, right? It's engaging the inner garment, the real me, the real me relative to the actions of me. Now, just to give a little balance now that we should not get off kilter over here, there's about me and there's about my impact. So charity is the outward impact in the world and about making, a dwelling place and so on. Right now, the argument that is being made is through the study of Torah that it employs speech and thought, the inner garment of the vital soul. So it's a much more, again, I'm connecting my inner being with the light of Torah. That is a very powerful and a greater power. All right. Furthermore, the Alter Rebbe says, that's thoughts, right? Now, we need to make a distinction between intelligence and thoughts. Just, someone can have a high IQ, but always be thinking, about childish things. Have a very high IQ, but always thinking childish things. Someone can have a mediocre IQ, right? And yet always be thinking deep things, Tanya and so on. So thinking is one thing, that's the expression, but then there's the intelligence itself. So the Alter Rebbe says here, our ChaBaD, which is Chochmah, Bina, V'das, wisdom, understanding, and knowledge that we have, are actually absorbed in the holiness through our study of Torah. When we concentrate and we're focused, it's literally being transformed. That Chochmah of my vital soul, right? Because my vital soul has intelligence. And the vital soul's intelligence is not holy by its nature. But the fact now that my vital soul is understanding, not just thinking. We just spoke about the thought process. Now we're talking about that you understand. And through that understanding, your intelligence is now bound up in the holiness of the Torah that you're studying. How could you transform our inner being? That's only of a righteous person. We've learned previously that they can transform their inner being of intelligence and emotions. So here the Alter Rebbe makes an interesting distinction. The righteous person, their heart, they're able to transform. In other words, we all have things that linger in our hearts. We have desires, we have urges, we have lusts, we have even addictions. A righteous person doesn't, because it transformed it all. We haven't. It remains there. We don't have to give it any expression in thought, speech, or action, right? That's a Beinoni ultimately, but we have that. That's going to be transformative. But what we can transform is our ChaBaD of our vital/animal soul. It can actually be absorbed in holiness and be literally transformed. We have that capability, but not in our emotional being. We can't. We can push away negative feelings in our heart, but we can't transform it. Only the righteous can do that. In any case, the point being over here is that our intelligence, not just of our godly soul, but of our vital soul, is now absorbed in the divine. That's a second point. Third point that the Alter Rebbe makes is that the union of me as a person. Now, we just spoke about my thoughts, that they're bound up in, who am I really, and my thoughts is bound up in Torah. My intelligence is bound up in the study of Torah and has been transformed, my intelligence of the vital soul. But then there's the entirety of me, and being bound up. What we're doing right now is very powerful. What we're doing right now in our study of Torah, the way we're bound up with God, is far greater than we can be bound up with a physical action mitzvah. Let's explain. Well, let's explain. The way I can simply explain is by putting on tefillin. Tefillin, you put it on you. It's not in you. It's not in you. It's on you. So, what does that mean? It means that our connection to God is, I'm bound up with God and doing an act of a mitzvah, being charitable, putting on tefillin, lighting Shabbos candles and the like. But it doesn't become a part of me. It's like two things being attached. It's like, two things coming together and being glued together, and they become one, right? But essentially, they're two separate things and not really a complete oneness. It's like me and my limbs of my body, and the mitzvahs are 248 positive commandments that are analogous to the 248 limbs that we have of the body. Each mitzvah being an expression of a different limb, meaning it's an expression and it brings vitality and light into a specific area, but again, encompassing the entirety of the person when you do the act of the mitzvah. But that union, that oneness with the divine, with God, is like, the limbs is a part of me, but, I can live without a limb, I mean, not as opposed to the brain. I can't live without the brain, right? So what does that mean? It means when I'm doing an act of a physical mitzvah, I'm bound up in one with God. But it is not a perfect union, not a perfect seamless oneness. But when I study Torah, as we are doing right now, the oneness with God, there is nothing that's comparable to it. There's nothing like it. Even though we can be discussing things of a physical nature in Torah learning, that physical nature of the Torah learning is really, has God in it, the wisdom of God. We're actually grasping God, and as we make the blessing, Hashem Nasan Lanu Torah, also He gave us His Torah, just as the water on top of the mountain is the same water at the bottom of the mountain, meaning it hasn't changed. Same thing, the spiritual nature of Torah, as it comes down and devolves into this world, into a physical reality, and it speaks about the physical reality. It's not like people make a mistake. They think Torah is like divine wisdom. It's like, imagine you got a new dishwasher, and that dishwasher comes with instructions, a guidebook on how to make the best of your dishwasher. By the way, that's a real important example for me, because we've gone through a few dishwashers and seemingly we're not reading the instructions well, because they don't seem to, right? So God gave us instructions in life on how to make the best out of your life. And He gave us even better than the dishwasher instructions. And we follow it. That's 248 commandments, 365 prohibitions, the do's and the don'ts. No, I'm not connected to the maker of the dishwasher when I follow the instructions. But here we are. Every time we're studying Torah, that book of instructions, even though it's speaking about a material reality of this world, in it, I got God. I have His wisdom, divine wisdom, and I have Him. And as a result, and how do I have Him? Inside, not out, it's not on me, but from within. His wisdom becomes my wisdom. His vision becomes my vision.
So,
Ultimately.
Rabbi,
Yes, Vilma.
if I may.
Absolutely, you may. Please, on the contrary, go ahead.
So the greatest intimacy, and this applies to God and any other person, is of the mind. So, like, if you understand the person, who they are, or God, anything that is known, you can get to know. And so that's the greatest intimacy, getting to know somebody in their thoughts, in their mind, how they think, what they want, all that.
Right. It's like, well said. It's like, how do you know that you know somebody so well? That when they start saying something, you can finish their sentence. Or even before they said something, you already are responding, because you know where they're at, you know what they're thinking. And because you understand them, right? It's coming from understanding that then allows you with your heart to be able to sense them, and so on. That's true, absolutely. Absolutely. So to take that over here is the unbelievable intimacy, connection, which intimacy meaning bond, connection, the depth of connection, is in what we're doing right now in the study of Torah. And that's what makes it so much superior over all the other mitzvahs, including charity, because of that unity, that oneness that is incomparable. Like, take it back to a human relationship, right? When you are doing something for someone, that's a connection. No, let's not, you know, when you're doing something for a loved one, right? That expresses that connection, absolutely. And as we're going to speak about in the following class, you know, how we can understand and reconcile these two things, yet it's not as deep a unity and oneness as that when you get them and understand them and can finish their sentence, can already respond to something because you kind of get where their head is and what they're even thinking. Absolutely. That's what Torah Study gives us. All right, folks, that is the teachings. Now discussion. Well, them already started. And anybody else who wants to chime in the discussion, please do. We have on Facebook. And also, just I want to add here for Clubhouse people, folks, that one of the things that we do, because these teachings are lofty, these teachings are very powerful, they're essential, but sometimes it's easy to hear it but not be able to own it. How do you own something? You own it if you can regurgitate it, if you can say it. If you can say it in your words, your own words, of course, right? But being able to say it in your own words means that this is what you got, and this is what you're taking home with you. So on Facebook, we have every day everybody writes. Not everybody, but some people do. Those who choose to. No one's forced here, of course. To express what they know and what they learned, and especially what's the unique thought of the day. So Batya, here from Montreal, I know now that it's possible that I can transform my intelligence of my animal soul, whereas I cannot transform my emotions of my animal soul. Very good. The vitality of my intellect is bound up and one with Hashem, especially when I study Torah. Excellent. Okay, anybody here on Clubhouse wants to share something, wants to add something, ask something? Vilma maybe inspire some people here.
If you want to join the discussion, please raise your hand.
Oh, okay. But I'll let Batya in. Oh.
Hi, Rabbi.
Hey,
I
Batya.
wanted to ask a question in
Sure.
regards to our limbs and the negative commandments, and in regards to this class and how we are able to transform. I know intellect, but how do our limbs correlate with whatever the sins are, the negative commandments?
Oh, the limbs don't. Those are the positive commandments.
Uh-huh.
The negative commandments are the 365 sinews. It's the negative commandments is actually, it's interesting. It's about blood. It's about the flow. It's about the flow of blood. And as we know medically, right, if there's some kind, if the blood, has an infection, God forbid, right, on how that's debilitating physically. So that's a metaphor to understand how transgressing a prohibition, right, the don'ts of Torah, right, thou shalt not murder, or thou shalt not speak ill, lashon hara, right, ill about someone. What that is doing spiritually, what that is doing is actually decreasing the healthy life force in our lives and bringing not just the healthy one, but bringing negative life force into our physical being, literally, and into our spiritual being, of course, but into our physical being, that it becomes a something debilitating, something diseased in a spiritual sense, just as, God forbid, if there's an obstruction of the flow of blood throughout the body because of some kind of of something that the blood is infected with something, then that is what we do to ourselves spiritually, for sure, and it also will ultimately reflect physically. But that's so that's the prohibitions. Okay, is that clear?
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Yes.
you for that. All right. Anybody else? So Travis is asking, how does one convert into ChaBaD? Well, you don't convert into ChaBaD, first of all. You convert into Judaism. It could be through ChaBaD rabbi or teachings. Absolutely. Been studying Torah for 6 years and waiting to convert. I don't know what to say, Travis. I don't know where you're. Okay, I'll email you and we'll have a conversation. Okay? Wow, interesting. Okay. So Barry's asking, how about our divine mission? Isn't the action in the world, the tikkun olam, tzedakah? Barry, you're absolutely correct, and that's what we spoke about yesterday. And the Alter Rebbe is now making the counter argument. The reconciliation of that will yet to come. We're just making the other side of the argument right now. Listen, we're Jewish, 2 Jews, 3 opinions. So. So now you got your opinion. So look at that. Got the third opinion here. But absolutely correct. The difference is, just to give a difference is, when it comes to physical action-oriented mitzvahs, it's about the world. When it comes to study of Torah, it's about your connection, right? And that's that's the basic distinction. We'll get more into that. Okay, any other questions here, comments? Anybody else, please, in Clubhouse?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
So the garments of the soul, the thoughts, speech, and actions, they all have energy. They all carry energy, right?
Yes.
So out of the 3 I was reading in Tanya, that they said that the one with the most energy is the thoughts. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Right. Why?
Yes, why? Because it's closest to us? Because we carry
Exactly.
it around? Because they're powerful? Why?
All of the above. Very good, Vilma. All of the above. Asking an excellent question. We have 3 garments of self-expression: thought, speech, and action. So, what's more powerful than your thought, speech, and action? Is your intelligence and your emotions. What's even more powerful than that? The essence of your soul, that's even beyond intelligence and beyond emotions, right? So the thoughts of the person, as we mentioned from the teaching of the Baal Shem Tov, the thoughts, that's where you are. In other words, that's a deeper expression of you. That means your thoughts are much more vital, much more powerful than actually your action. We learned that the thought is more destructive than the act towards you. Now, if you did an act of hurting somebody else, your thought of it obviously is not going to hurt that person in the same way that your actions will. Of course not. But that's how it's expressed to the other. The thought of hurting somebody else is actually more destructive to me than the act of doing it. I'm not talking about the responsibility. We're not talking about the damage and all that. For sure. For sure, there's more of a responsibility for your actions and your thoughts. That's not the point over here. I'm talking about the fact of it. The fact of the thought is much more. And that's why when we can have healthy thoughts and we can be in command and control of our thoughts, we will be a much better person. But if we think that our thoughts are free and they can be free flowing and whatever comes in is okay, because after all, if I'm thinking it and I'm not speaking it, if it's ill, or not acting upon it, then what's the big deal? It is a big deal because it's a true reflection of you. It's a much more powerful, vital force of that is being affected as a result. Is that clear, Vilma?
Yes, thank you. And we have Andrew here too.
Oh, yes, Andrew, please.
Boker Tov, good morning.
Boker Tov.
So I'm thinking, just because it's fresh in my mind, I'm learning about demons and shadim and witchcraft as relates to zugos, as relates to pairs. in the current tractate of the Gemara.
Right.
And I'm just kind of wondering, how much thought do I really have to give into it? I know that, I forget who it was, but he really took away, maybe Rava, took away this belief in the shadim so does it should it? I also know that in Jerusalem, boys don't go to their father's funerals. So does it? Because I never really learned about it so much. Should it take up some mind space, or should I just kind of just read it and gloss it over and then move on to the next concept?
Wow, good question. I have to give it a little more thought, but my initial thoughts, at least, are that since it's part of the Talmud, since it's part of Torah, therefore it's something that we need to understand. It's not something just to be read over. Now the question is, how to understand it, what to understand of it. Should you spend more time on that than other areas? Maybe not, but it shouldn't be just something. It's like some people when they come to in the Talmud, in the Gemara, they come to Agadata, they come to the stories of the Talmud. They quickly go through it because they want to get into the meat and potatoes. They want to get into the real discussion and arguments that are of a halachic nature. But no, you shouldn't, because there's so much in every line. It is the teachings of our sages. It is Torah. It is the divine will and the divine wisdom. So we need to understand it as best as we can. That being said, maybe the energy and greater focus would be in other areas. That I would tend to agree. That's my initial thought. But again, it is part of Torah. Does that help you?
Sure, yes. Yeah, it definitely helps me. It's not really spoken about, probably because we don't like to speak about, the boogeyman and about those kind of things. But I know, for example, I'll give you a quick example, is that a friend of mine was doing construction in his home, and he closed up a window.
Right.
And it became very, very problematic. We had to actually get a minion of people together and read from a cloth. And so I do believe in it. I just don't know how much credence to really give to it.
Yeah, so I'm trying to remember the story because you're bringing up a very general topic that is an important one, and it ties in also with having bad dreams. If you have nightmares and so on. So we have to be careful not to give to negative things power, and therefore we shouldn't. We should have to be careful not to express those things. So when you're learning it, part of Torah. When it's something that has happened to you and you're now engaged in something, so then that we have to be careful about verbalizing it, about doing something in an action that will, and that's in that instance about closing the window. You're right. There is something that needs to be done. Initially, there needs to be a little hole left, and so on. So there is a reality to it, but we shouldn't get stuck in that reality, because then we're giving more power and to klipa, and that we don't want to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned dreams, because I know that whenever we say the Cohen's prayer, the Birkat Kohanim,
right,
it refers specifically to dreams and bad dreams.
Right, totally. Right, because that's a moment that we can transform it. Right, that's what we're asking. Take my bad dreams, my nightmares, and transform it into that it's only good. So we have to be careful if we do have some bad nightmares. Verbalizing it, and we want to share it with somebody. The dream I had. Maybe not such a great idea, because not because now you a bad omen, you're good. It's because what you're doing is you're giving to negative forces power, and therefore that's something we want to be careful with. When you're studying it in the Torah, right? Then you're not giving it, because you're studying it as part of Torah, as opposed to something of your personal engagement or happenings. Does that make sense?
Perfect sense. Last follow-up question.
Sure.
Is it possible for a person like me that studies Torah every day and that prays 3 times a day and tries to live a Jewish lifestyle? But I'm in the world and I'm dealing with a lot of non-Jewish things. Is it possible to strive to be this Beinani? I don't know if you discussed what Beinani is, but I have such a hard time when I see like these really huge people and these figures that are trying to be Beinani, and I'm so far from them. Is it even possible to achieve that?
Excellent question. So if we trust the Alter Rebbe, he says it's Midas HaBeinani is a quality that every person should strive after and can attain. I also have the same challenge as you do. A Beinani, by the way, for those who are not clear, is someone who has complete mastery, not over their heart and what's in their heart, because that we can't control, as we mentioned earlier, right? But of controlling it, not to give it playtime in my head. So if I have a negative thought that comes into my head, I don't cogitate it. I don't willfully think it. I push away that thought that I know that shouldn't be there, but somehow entered, right? So, and my speech and action to also be in complete control and mastery over, and that is a Beinani. Only that's a middle ground person, not a righteous person, and that's something that we all have the capacity. Because behavior in Judaism is not just your actions that you have complete responsibility and your words you have complete responsibility for, but even cogitated, mindful or willful thought, we also have responsibility, which means we have the capacity ultimately to be in complete control at all times and to be master of our levushim, our self-expression in thought, speech, and action. So is it hard? Puh! I mean, whoa. You know what I call ourselves? What I think what the level that we want to be at is what's called a BIT, Beinani in training. Am I a Beinani? Far from being a Beinani. Do I have complete mastery of everything I say? Oh, I wish. Everything I think, cogitated thought, I wish. But I know I'm in training. I know that that's the path that I want to take. That's the direction I want to take. That's who I want to be. Ultimately, am I going to be that? Well, the Alter Rebbe believes I could. Sometimes I question myself, not him. Does that help you, Andrew?
Yeah, the only tenet that I have that I've struggled with, because I realize, being a God-fearing person, that I have no control. I really don't have control. I try to have control, but I lose control of basically every situation, even though I have a good way of kind of faking it. But how can I rationalize that with the fact that you have to be in control when I know that I have no control?
I guess, again, BIT, we're a Beinani in training. If you're looking to, I think, it's a journey, and it's a process. We want to get there, and we're working on it. It's about, I don't know, I guess what we should think of, it's not about getting there. It's about moving in that direction. I think that's the key.
If I can interject.
Sure, Vilma, please.
So there's a difference between what we can and can't control and outcomes, like any outcome, like what happens to us or what happens to other people. We can't control that. We can only master ourselves. And like the rabbi said, thought, speech, and action. Otherwise, if you try to force things, that's not going to work out good.
I don't think Andrew was speaking, I mean, maybe I'm mistaken, but I don't think he was speaking about controlling the outcome. I think he was speaking about the controlling of the outcome for himself, being the Beinani. Yeah, that's what I understood. But even that, I don't think should be the focus. I think the focus is just moving in that direction. Every opportunity that we have is another opportunity that we can be a greater master of our being and being in control of who we need to be. Is that resonate, Andrew?
It does resonate, and I appreciate it, and I work on it. I struggle with it, and but the bottom line is that even though I struggle with it and I work on it very hard, it's not about the outcome. It's about just the fact that my understanding of being a God-fearing person is to just give up control, and I mean not to let everyone walk all over you, but just everything is divinely intervented and comes from above. So it's like, why get upset? And I'm kind of just talking aloud because I'm trying to get through it. But why should I ever get upset about any outcome when I know that for sure that I had no control of the situation?
Right. So again, the outcome, the only control we do have is over ourselves, exactly like Vilma said. All right, amazing. This is a great discussion over here. Let me just see. There's discussion on Facebook, helping Travis. Okay, we'll get down to the bottom of this. Don't worry. Rick says, I know now that through Torah study I can subdue the animal soul, and through Torah study is loftier than charity. Excellent, very good. Anything else here to share? All right. Anything else, folks, before we, I think we're going to call it a day. Or, well, I don't know, we'll call it a day. We'll call it the morning. Vilma, you want to close things up?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you to you and everyone who participated, everybody who discussed and asked questions. We're here with the rabbi at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, Monday through Friday. Thank you and Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you, Vilma. Whoever didn't get a chance to follow, do get a chance to follow. And we will continue. Actually, Sunday, by the way, is at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we will wrap this chapter up and some of the thoughts that we've been talking about then. Thank you all for joining. Have a wonderful day and a great Shabbos. Thank you.
Good job. Thank you,
Rob. Thank you. Thank you, Vilma. Thank you, everybody. All right, folks. Wonderful. Travis will make things happen, or well, at least we'll have a discussion. Eugenia and Stan. Thank you, everybody. All right. Beautiful. It's a great conversation over here. Everybody have a wonderful day. Don't forget to share. Sharing is caring. And we will continue our learning and conversation. Have a wonderful day. Good Shabbos.